students, welcome to my class. I am Debasis Nanda, lecturer computer science of BOSE, Qatar. Today we are going to learn white box testing, black box testing and grey box testing. So, in this particular class, I am going to cover the topics white box testing, black box testing, grey box testing and comparison between all these three particular testing. So, what is white box testing? We will start from this place. White box testing is testing internal coding and infrastructure. Identify which line of code is actually executed and which is not, which may indicate that there is either missing logic or a typographical error. White box testing is also known as addition to input and output and relationships, often used for verification. It is done by the developers. Who are the developers? The developers are the software given to them and they write the code. They are called the developers. Structure based or glass box testing. This is another name of the white box testing. This is called because here the tester requires knowledge of how the software is implemented. So I have given a classification of white box testing here in the screen. So white box testing is divided into two different kind of testing. One is called static testing and the other is called dynamic testing. So in the static testing you can see there are again two things which is called code walkthrough and code inspection. And in dynamic testing there are three things. One is unit testing, other is unit coverage and code complexity. And unit coverage also covers, there are four things which it covers. One is statement coverage, path coverage, condition coverage and function coverage. So let us go and discuss about the static testing. The static testing can be used by the developer who wrote the code, just reviewing the code to find the error. So what in the static testing, the developer can find out the code by going just through the code which he has already written. Next thing is code walkthrough. What is code walkthrough? Code walkthrough is a peer review. What do you mean by peer? Peer means there is a group of people who will undertake the review along with a team leader. So code walkthrough is a peer review in which a programmer, that means the team leader, leads the review process and other team members ask questions and spot possible errors against development standards. The main purpose of code inspection is to find out the defects. The software is tested by executing it on computer to check the dynamic behavior of the code. Example, unit testing, integration testing and system testing. What is unit testing? When a software is developed, there are small modules or items and they are called units. These units are tested and errors are found out, and integration testing is all the units are assembled together to perform correctly, and that is the testing is done to find out if all the modules are working correctly when combined. And third one is system testing. So system testing is what? After integration testing, the system testing is taken into by the developer and the user. The software is passed on to the user who orders the software, and he finds out whether it is working correctly or not. Next, the more good unit tests there is covering the code, the easier it will be to understand and change the code later on. That means the maximum times you will visit the units and find out the errors, it will be easier to change the code later on. Third one is code complexity. Figure tells quite the how easy to read and change the code. So in the testing, how we encounter a bug in white bug testing. A bug is an error and how it can be found out. It involves testing or a series of predefined inputs against expected outputs. So when a specific input does not result in the expected output, you have encountered a bug. That means user tells us what will be the expected output when he orders the software. When the bug is to find out the combination of predefined inputs and expected outputs. So what are the advantages of white box testing? The advantages are many, but I have listed here only 4. One is testing can be done at an early stage. One need not wait for the graphical user interface to be available. Testing is more thorough with the possibility of covering most paths. The other advantage of white box testing is that it helps in optimizing the code. So what will be the disadvantages in white box testing? As knowledge of code and internal structure is a prerequisite, a skilled tester is needed to carry out this type of testing, which increases the cost not looking at the code in a runtime environment. So this ends the white box testing. Now we will move to black box testing. So what is black box testing? Black box testing refers to a software testing method where SUT functionality is tested without worrying about its details of implementation, internal path, knowledge and internal code structure of the software. Black box testing is a software testing method in which the internal structure of the item being tested is not known to the tester. Black box testing is often used for validation. Black box testing is done by the professional testing team. Now what are the types? I have listed 3 types. One is functional, second one is non-functional, and third one is regression test. So we are moving to techniques of black box testing. The first one is boundary value analysis or BVA. BVA helps in testing any software having a boundary or extreme values. BVA is capable of identifying the flaws of the limit of the input values rather than focusing on the range of input values. Boundary value analysis deals with the edge or extreme output values. The other one is state transition testing. This technique usually considers the state, outputs and inputs of a system during a specific period. This technique checks for the behavioral changes of a system in a particular state or another state while maintaining the same inputs. The test cases in this black box testing are created by checking the sequence of transition and state of events. So the other one of black box testing, the techniques used is graph based testing. What is this graph based testing? Graph based testing involves a graph drawing that depicts the link between the causes, that means inputs, and the effects, that means output, which trigger the effects. This testing utilizes different combinations of output and inputs. It is a helpful technique to understand the software's functional performance as it visualizes the flow of inputs and outputs in a lively fashion. The fourth one we are going to discuss the techniques is error guessing technique. Graph based testing involves a graph drawing that depicts the link between the causes and effects which trigger the effects. This testing utilizes different combinations of outputs and inputs. It is helpful technique to understand the software's functional performance as it visualizes the flow of inputs and outputs in a lively fashion. So what are the advantages of black box testing? Here tester can be non-technical. That means it is not required that tester should be computer literate or having a lot of knowledge on computers. Here tester needs no knowledge of implementation, including specific programming language. Test will be done from the end user's point of view because end user should accept the system. What does it mean? It means that the tester should be capable of knowing the output of the software which matches the user's requirement. What are the disadvantages of black box testing? Disadvantages are not all properties of a software product can be tested. The reason for a failure is not found. Only a small number of possible inputs can be tested and many program paths will be left untested. So this ends our discussion on black box testing. Now we will learn something about grey box testing. So what is this grey box testing? Grey box testing is a combination of white box testing and black box testing. The aim of this testing is to search for the defects, if any, due to improper structure or improper usage of the applications. Grey box testing is beneficial because it takes the straightforward technique of black box testing and combines it with the code targeted systems in white box testing. What we need for grey box testing? Grey box testing applies straightforward technique of black box testing and influences it against the code targeted system in white box testing. Gray box testing is based on requirement test case generation because it presets all the conditions before program is tested by using assertion method. So what are the advantages of gray box testing? It offers combined benefits of black box testing and white box testing wherever possible. Gray box tester don't rely on the source code. Based on the limited information available, a gray box tester can design excellent test scenarios, especially around communications, protocols and data type handling. It also offers combination benefit. It serves advantages from both black box testing and white box testing. It is non-intrusive. That means it is based on functional specification, architectural view, whereas not on source code or binaries, which makes it invasive too. So what are the advantages of gray box testing? It is intelligent test offering. Testers handles intelligent test scenario. Example, data type handling, communication protocol and exception handling. It is a unbiased testing. That means gray box testing maintains boundary for testing between the tester and developer. Since the access to source code is not available, the ability to go over the code and test coverage is limited. Testing every possible input stream is unrealistic because it would take an unreasonable amount of time. Therefore, many program paths will go untested. So I have arranged a comparison here between all three: black box, gray box and white box. At serial number 1 you can see the black box. What is there? The internal workings of an application are not required to be known, whereas in gray box the internal workings of an application are required to be known. And in white box, tester has full knowledge of internal workings of the application. In the second point, I have listed in the black box is also known as closed box testing, data driven testing or functional testing, while in gray box it is known as translucent testing, as tester has limited knowledge of the insights of the application. And in white box it is known as clear box testing, code box based testing or structural testing. We are moving to third point. So here in black box it is performed by end users and also by testers and developers, whereas in gray box it is performed by end users and also by testers and developers. But in white box it is normally done by tester and developers only. In the fourth point, comparison between black box, gray box and white box, we can find in black box testing is based on external expectations and internal behavior of application is unknown, while in gray box testing is done on the basis of high level database diagram and data flow diagram, while in white box the internal workings are fully known and tester can design test data accordingly. So I have given you some assignment questions. There are 7 questions in all which you can try and write me. Thank you very much.